Professor?
You're gonna find this hard to believe.
I was sent here for you.
From the future?
50 years from now.
Could you give me that one more time, please?
Stay with me.
In the beginning, the Sentinels were just targeting mutants. Then they began targeting everyone. They've come a long way to guide us, to bring us together. The X-Men. We need your help.
Tell whoever it was that sent you that I'm busy.
The person who sent me was you.
It's going to take all of us to end this war.
You're Beast?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Pretty strong for a scrawny kid.
I said you need to leave.
You and I are gonna be good friends. You just don't know it yet.
We're going to need Mystique.
Why?
You're a cold-hearted bitch.
Well, don't hold back.
Where's Magneto?
That man is a monster. He's being held 100 floors beneath the most heavily guarded building on the planet.
I know a guy. You'd be a young man now.
He's fascinating. He's a pain in the ass.
Prison break? That's illegal, you know. Only if you get caught.
Charles. Good to see you too, old friend.
This is gonna be fun.
There is a new enemy out there. You'll need a new weapon for this war.
Everything that happens now is in your hands.
In the future.
Do I make it?
No.
Hi everyone and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and today we are continuing with part 2 of our 2014 superhero movie summer special. Joining me again, we have Steve and Tony, and we are going to continue where we left off last week, talking about X-Men Days of Future Past, and we'll also take a little peek at Guardians of the Galaxy, which is right around the corner, and an update on Ant-Man. So let's pick it up where we left off last time.
All right, here's my question. The little post-credit scene in Wolverine.
Oh, wait, whoa.
Wolverine.
Yeah. Whoa, Wolverine.
In the last
the
post-credit scene in the airport in the last Wolverine movie had Professor X and Magneto coming to Wolverine in present day, but in this movie they're with him in the future. So how does that kind of fit together?
That's interesting, and then people have been complaining about it, and I don't know that I have an answer for it. The idea is, I think in the Wolverine, they're calling them stingers now. These post-credit tags, they're now called stingers. That's the.
There's a website all about stingers,
so
you can see what movie has it.
I think they say it takes place 2 to 3 years after Wolverine. You know, the airport scene.
Yeah, he's going back to civilization.
Yeah. So, whereas the events in Days of Future Past, you know, it's
like 2024 or something.
Right. So but there's always been sort of a vague thing about X-Men timeline, the movie timeline. It's always supposed to be in the future, just maybe a little, like maybe 10 years in the future. But still, they're saying, people are asking what Tony just asked is, well, is it like another 10 years after?
It seems like
that's what they're saying. Like the notion, because you see on like a TV monitor, Trask, and you see the whole, Sentinels going on.
Commercial.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess what we're supposed to think is it's probably about 10 years. So that recruiting Wolverine
for 10 years in the future?
Well, no, not that they've been together these 10 years with the other X-Men fighting this sort of losing battle that gets worse and worse and worse, starting, probably at the end of Wolverine to then, he's got the gray temples. Even Wolverine, who's not much for aging, has the gray temples.
I need some basics here, okay? Timeline.
I think the timeline is totally screwed
X-Men First Class.
60s.
62.
Okay? That's followed by...
Cuban Missile Crisis.
By theoretically what's happening in this movie.
Yes.
Theoretically,
1973.
up until Wolverine arrives. Okay. Mm-hmm. If Wolverine,
you're asking Back to the Future questions, aren't you?
If Wolverine did not arrive in the 70s,
yes,
then that would have been followed by X-Men.
Mm-hmm. Right.
90s. X-Men 2.
2000.
X-Men 3.
Right.
Okay.
X-Men is supposed to take place in sort of a vague way, like, let's just say 10 years into the future. The first X-Men. Okay, now I know this kind of messes up the ages of, like, Professor X and Magneto, because if you say Magneto is, let's say he's like a 10-year-old kid in Auschwitz in the World War II, that means he's born in like 1934. That means if X-Men Future Past takes place, the future part takes place in like, say, 2020, that means he's almost 100. And that makes it a little ridiculous.
Okay, but hold on a second.
I can't give you the right answer.
No. Okay, here's my question.
Stop flashing us.
Trask. Mm-hmm. Whether they go back and forth, Trask is developing this
Sentinel program,
right?
Yeah.
And is the Sentinel program supposed to be functional during X-Men and X-Men 2 and X-Men 3?
Yes. The Sentinels...
Not to the degree it is in this. They're just machines that can detect mutants.
And in like X-Men 3, even though it's the danger room...
hologram room.
The danger room. Just I know
up,
the
Carlos.
terminology.
Star Trek.
They show you a Sentinel, but... So the Sentinels were villains, if you want to call them villains, throughout the X-Men comic.
Okay, but in the movies, they never really touched on them, other than that room.
Well, yes... But in the comic, like the story, the Days of Future Past story...
They're fighting them.
Yeah, they're fighting them, but they have... Evolved. And they've basically destroyed mutants and destroyed humans and taken over, and, it's become this sort of apocalyptic world. So, the timeline is very fuzzy. You're just going to have to deal with it.
So it's almost like don't think too much about it.
Well, that's the thing. If you live and die by the movies... When you watch X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, you have to realize these things are out there. We're just not going to deal with them.
We're just not seeing them.
Yeah.
I mean, how many villains and characters and storylines are playing out that we're just never going to see in the movies? The movies all right, there are 3 X-Men movies.
Right.
There are villains.
If there's a concentrated effort,
you just
and these are such rivals, such big baddies.
Okay, but they
should be walking through every street in the city, wouldn't they?
No, because they don't in the comic. They unleash them, they fight them, they beat them, they come back. They're not so much a part of everyday life. Or they may just be hunting the mutants, not humans. That's the problem with in the Days of Future Past is they go past mutants
to
turn
humans.
On them
right away.
They turn on. It's a Skynet-y type of thing.
But did Magneto do something to make them do that? To turn against
stupid,
the humans?
Stupid luck. It's butterfly effect.
It
started with the blood in the leg, and then they get the sample, and they are able to clone her or not clone her.
I thought Magneto did something to the Sentinels to get it to focus on the
humans.
humans.
The movie. Yeah. In the movie he did. But in the comic, Magneto is not the creator of the Sentinels, or is he someone who
doesn't create the Sentinels either? And
I know he
facilitates the
he does
because of his own stupidity.
He does his thing on them, so for his own ends at the conclusion of the movie. But in the comic, he's being hunted by them just like every other mutant.
Though technically, he can't control them because they're not made of metal.
Well,
that's what Trask said.
Well,
in the movie.
That was something that confused me because didn't Trask say
they're made of a polymer?
That the 70s versions of the Sentinels were still made of not metal, right?
Yeah, he said like some special polymer.
So why was Magneto able to manipulate them?
I don't know.
Where? When was he able to? Oh, that's right.
At the end with the
he picks one up and tears them apart, doesn't he?
All right. Wait, I think I have the answer to that because now as I'm thinking about it,
on
the train.
The train.
He did something.
He did something.
He put metal in them.
Put metal in them.
Yeah.
Isn't it great we're doing this? It's all making sense now.
But some things are just not going to make sense. Some things aren't going.
That's why he's putting metal in.
And the screenwriter who did this one also did X-Men Last Stand, and he saw this as a way to sort of rewrite history and fix things that he shouldn't have done because there was such a negative reaction to X-Men Last Stand.
Outside of killing Cyclops, though, I don't remember what X-Men Last Stand was so bad.
People are very upset, and I'm not one of them. But
Jean Grey,
they're very upset with the way he handled Dark Phoenix, and so it's like, all right, reset.
Into darkness.
Well, anyway. So with X-Men Days of
Spock
Future
travels
Past,
in time, meets
how
Nero.
did we like the movie overall?
Loved
I thought
it.
it was a really good story. I liked the cast,
a
the
great,
acting.
Great sequel to First Class. Mm-hmm. I still love the fact that they play with the era. It's 70s.
Yeah, I love that.
I love all that stuff. I hope it's something if they continue to do these films, they continue to play with era stuff.
I think that's what's going to happen because I think
What's next, 80s?
80s. I think what's going to happen is, I kind of think, and it makes me a little sad, but I understand if it happens, that
Spandex.
the sort of contemporary cast is going to go away. And this might have been the last time we ever see them.
It was the Generations.
Generations, yeah. Whereas, we go into the 80s. We still might have Hugh Jackman because we can, but the other characters.
He's getting old, man.
Yeah, but he's still, he's still got maybe 2 or 3 more movies in him between Wolverine and X-Men. But anyway, you're going to have James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender and Nicholas Hoult and all those actors in the roles. The next movie is going to be with Apocalypse. We know that. We haven't talked about the Stinger yet. But I mean, just to stick with the movie itself, I loved it.
Quicksilver?
Quicksilver was great.
The character. They did such a good job with him.
I was shocked because I thought that
he was from American Horror Story.
Yeah, I thought that they were kind of sort of thumbing their nose at Marvel because Fox has the rights and Marvel has the rights.
Because Quicksilver appeared at the end of Captain America.
And we saw him,
as a little insane.
Different actor.
So they were like, well, we're going to use him too. And he served a purpose. It wasn't like they just shoehorned him in there, to say, hey,
question: When
too.
you see him at the end watching TV with the little girl, is that his sister? Is that the other one that also?
Cap now.
That's no, it's his X-Men. When he sees when they're watching Magneto on TV, he's with Wanda, his sister.
Now, is Wanda the other person they used on?
Yes, the Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
And they also allude to the fact in the movie that Magneto was his father.
And the movie?
Yeah.
Really?
How did they do that?
I didn't get that. I don't even remember.
Guys,
let's go. Come on.
There's a line in the movie where Quicksilver says to Magneto, my mom used to hang out with a guy who could manipulate metal.
Oh, I thought it was a 70s joke about Uri Geller.
Oh, my God. Magneto is his father. It's well established in the comic. Magneto is Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch's Faja.
That's right.
Faja. He is.
Okay, I don't get that reference.
They can't do that in the Avengers because they don't have Magneto. But they do have them to use, and they will be in the Avengers, as played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, in next year's Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. See, I had totally forgotten about the family thing.
And I was saying to myself, when as I was watching it, I'm like, are they going to at least hint at it? And there it was.
And you know what? And that's another good, again, going back to Man of Steel separation. X-Men Days of Future Past, as serious as the storyline is, they managed to get some humor in there.
Yeah.
Which, again, Man of Steel, I don't think
Man of Steel is a completely humorless exercise. And I think these movies desperately need to not take themselves seriously. Mm-hmm.
So,
as serious as they may be.
Wolverine knows everything.
Yes.
And now he tells Professor X everything.
Well, now Professor X knows everything, too.
But Professor X almost was like waiting for him.
Patrick Stewart knows everything.
Yes.
He knows about Wolverine, and he knows about what happened with Nixon and the White House and this and that. But that's his history. That becomes his history. He has to ask Wolverine. Wolverine is the only one who remembers X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men 3.
Right.
He remembers.
But it's almost like he knows... Without Wolverine saying anything, it almost like he knows something's going on here.
Well, because he knows that Wolverine came to him from the future.
Right.
And, where has Wolverine been all those...
Well, he's been there, but...
Without the memory.
But without the memory, he's waking up. He wakes up, I guess you could say he would... Well, he just wakes up at the moment in whatever year it is. Like, say it was 2020 that he was sent back from. It was November 1st, 2020. Mm-hmm. On November 1st, 2020, he wakes up and he's like, shit. The adventure happens for him, the drowning, whatever. And they're saying that's the last thing he remembers. So here's the thing. Patrick Stewart might have to explain to him what his history is.
In the whole last 30, 40 years.
Right, because Wolverine remembers the alternate history. He doesn't remember, they took him off the boat. Mystique took him off the boat. No Stryker.
No Stryker,
well,
no Claws.
He still might have
no adamantium.
We don't know that. We don't know that
because we didn't see him do
he had
anything.
the bones in this
he didn't
one.
do he
No,
did
no,
his
but
bones.
when he went back to
at the end,
At the very end of the movie, he didn't do any snicky stuff. So we don't know. We don't know. And if the next movie takes place in the 80s with the original First Class cast, we're not going to know. You know, it all hinges on, do they, you know, this might not be a bad business decision for Fox. We have two casts now. We can do two movies. We can do old movies. We could do new movies.
No,
you know,
you can't do old movies. You're doing parallel times.
No, separate. No, the new X-Men are... But then again,
in the 80s, and the old X-Men are where?
they can be whenever they want them to be.
No, when the movie ended, the Patrick Stewart timeline, that was probably like current day. That wasn't like the 90s or anything.
Right, but that timeline dissolves.
No, it doesn't dissolve.
Jesus.
It's rebooted.
It was changed. It was
It's
rebooted.
changed.
So people are alive that were dead. You're just
Right,
not
but
getting
I'm
this.
saying there is no Sentinel
No.
over world. It's a nice clean
Right.
world.
But they're
It's a
heroes.
future world.
They're
It's not
heroes.
a clean world, but it's
They
not,
can
it's a
have
world without
villains.
But you're
Sentinels.
saying it's the older actors.
Yeah, you have two
Mikkel-
casts.
Okay, I
You
got
have
it.
two casts.
I see what you're saying.
Their past.
Yeah, I guess
They just have now. They're linked. They're completely linked. Whatever
Two
you know, their
parallel time
history is
periods.
set.
But they're not parallel. They're not parallel.
They're not parallel. This is the past and this is the present.
Okay, just two periods of time in the same line.
Yeah, in the same line.
Right.
No alternates.
No alternates. They're in the same line.
And only Wolverine remembers what happened.
You're going
in
to
the
tell
past.
future stories, or you're going to tell past stories. I got it. Okay.
You could. I don't know if they will. I just think it's an option. You know, just to talk a little bit more about the movie itself, I really think that the actors, the young actors, I was a little. Again, it's a generations thing. You know, there was a lot cut out from the Patrick Stewart cast because they wanted to focus. Oh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of Blu-ray stuff that they want to focus on the 1973 story. Yeah. Understandably. You know, the Patrick Stewart thing was a framing story. So, you know, and I was so happy to see these characters again because I thought Last Stand was it. So it was kind of happy to see like Iceman and these other characters again. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of cool, and Colossus and all that, even if the roles were small. But I mean, you talk about Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, they're powerhouses. But Fassbender and James McAvoy, I mean, they just blew me away. Mm-hmm. I mean, I loved First Class. This was 10 times better.
Well, let me tell you something. I like Fassbender better in First Class because he gets to be more emotional about things in First Class.
He's more committed.
He's got a mission, and he's suffering, and you can feel, even though he's a bad guy, you can feel his pain.
Yeah.
You know, you feel his.
Yeah.
Is Carlos talking about the emotion of a movie?
Seriously,
really? I think I would actually agree with Carlos for a change.
I would too.
You know, I enjoy
for a change.
I like Days of Future Past a lot, but if I remember it correctly, X-Men First Class did have a little bit more of the character emotion. Yeah.
Fassbender stuck out of that movie.
I think
this was very story oriented.
Yeah, and it was like, we got to drive the plot forward. We got to move forward. Mm-hmm. You know, every 5 minutes we're on the private jet going here, going there, going
Fassbender, there. Magneto, young Magneto, even though he's helping them, he eventually basically says, "Screw it, I'm still doing my thing." And he's going to continue to grow and age doing his thing until maybe a certain point in his life where he decides, to not do the.
Who knows? Now, without the sort of Sentinel threat that brings them together, they might stay. They like to call them frenemies. But I think that by rebooting, you probably make Magneto the big villain in for the next 30 years. But you're setting the stage for Apocalypse, who's even a bigger villain, and who could cause them to team up again.
Are we assuming that this tag at the end is directly linked with X-Men films?
Well, I think they already said the next movie is going to be Age of Apocalypse.
X-Men Age of Apocalypse.
Okay. As opposed to some other franchise that they might have the rights to.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, and why would they do that?
Because they do that sometimes for the Marvel films. They'll give you the collector.
They tease you
and
Thanos.
He's like, well, that's for the other movie.
They tease Thanos, and he's not the next.
So let's talk about this ending, this tag.
Wait,
before we get to the tag, let me ask you one more question about X-Men. At the end, they had the newspaper headline, Oliver Trask arrested for selling military secrets.
Well, remember, he was the Chinese and the Vietnamese and the Russians. He was trying to sell them because the U.S. wouldn't take him up on it.
Okay. Because to me, that part, I didn't know where they were coming from in that sense.
I wish we see more of him. I wish we see him again.
Peter Dinklage?
Because I wanted more.
Actor.
I wanted more of him.
Well, again, with a film of this scope, stuff is going to get lost. Stuff that's shot is going to get cut out because it had a very brisk running time.
Talk about a movie like we were just talking about Spider-Man. It's like, why did they bring in this guy? Why did they bring here? It's the opposite. It's like, why can I have more of him?
And these
I wanted
movies,
more of that.
These movies, they get bloated. You know, in a case of maybe like Batman, it's kind of okay, but like the last Batman movie was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and Spider-Man's 2 hours and 20 minutes. And even though, all right, I loved Avengers, but it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. 2 hours is a good running time.
You're better off leaving people wanting more than wanting less.
Yeah. Give them a director's cut afterwards.
Exactly. I mean, I was disappointed. I was disappointed because, like, for example, they cut Rogue Anna Paquin out.
Didn't she appear at the end
just
for
a little?
second?
But she had a part in the bleak future.
Did she get a credit?
Yeah.
At the end, yeah.
But
okay.
But basically, her part was cut. So I wanted to see that, and I was hoping she'd be in blah blah blah. You know, so it's, as Tony pointed out, this was a very story-driven, less character-driven. Even though the story was great and the actors were great, you know, you're going to lose a lot of those character bits in a movie that's this ambitious. It happened to work, and they also kept the running time brisk.
And, you know, the other thing that maybe is a little different for a comic book movie is that the resolution came not through an act of violence, but through an act of peace. Interestingly enough, by not shooting somebody, by not shooting the president, Mystique completely changes the timeline. So it didn't happen.
For the better.
Exactly. So it didn't happen. The answer didn't come through Magneto's way. It came through her dropping the gun.
Because the original mission was save her from getting
stop
caught.
her. Well, stop her from killing Trask.
Killing Trask
in the movie.
Right, it was.
And you know what I loved too? You know, there's this talk, and Stephen King is what I was thinking about because I read the book 11/22/63 about the assassination of JFK.
Yeah, we forgot about that.
And it's an excellent book. But what he posits,
that's a whole other movie right there.
I know. Well, let's hope they make it someday, or a miniseries.
No, I'm talking about the X-Men connection.
Oh
to
yeah,
Kennedy.
yeah, that was kind of cool.
He tried to save him. He was one of our own.
Wait, what? Cool. That was kind of cool. It was a throwaway, but it was cool. But what Stephen King posits about time travel, I know that's a rough word for you.
Hold on, let me get my iPad.
POSIT. What he suggests is that time is immutable. That if
whatever happened, happened.
Yeah, and if you change, they stop her, but then it looks like she's gonna do it. Like you stopped her one time, she's just going to do it again. She's going to keep trying, and time is going to make sure that it's going to help her.
Kind of like Charlie had to die on Lost.
Yeah, yeah. So, but even though they suggest that as a possibility in X-Men, that's not what happens. She does change the future. She does change things for the better. I was like, I love time travel in all its different forms, and I was just I thought it was handled really, really well. And there are always going to be questions. There are always going to be like those Back to the Future-y questions with time travel or Terminator. But
what do you think was the purpose of her being there when Wolverine gets rescued from the water?
She was trying to save him because she knew what Magneto had done to him, so she just wanted to rescue him.
But did she participate in the rescue? Did she do anything?
Yeah.
She didn't participate in the rescue. She was on the boat, I guess, to
she was posing as Stryker.
Are we assuming that she was like, he's over there, guys, dig him up? You know?
And it brings up an interesting question because she's pretending to be Stryker, and Stryker is the guy that gave him the adamantium skeleton. So I don't know.
Well, Stryker's not dead.
No.
He's still around.
But he doesn't have Logan.
And you know who comes off?
Yet.
Well, yeah.
Or who knows if ever.
But
and you know we don't know. We don't know unless they choose to do a movie.
But Logan
in that
still
timeline.
knows. Logan goes back to the past and still knows who Stryker is, who conned him, who did all these things to him, right?
Yes.
So he will, in theory, unless he's abducted and forced into the whole adamantium thing, he's not going to voluntarily do anything.
Probably right.
Probably right. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what else is interesting? You know who comes out not looking bad is Nixon.
Yeah.
Nixon actually comes out looking all right. She doesn't shoot him. He doesn't go on an anti-mutant crusade.
Except for him getting all those robots, ordering them built.
Well,
no, he didn't order them built. They were built long before.
No, but he gave the green light to, bring him on.
Okay, bring him on. But then
let's show them what I got.
But then he changed again.
Yeah.
with
So who knows? I mean, Nixon might not have become
Maybe
Nixon.
there's no Watergate.
Maybe there was nothing.
I like the fact that they stopped the tapes.
They stopped the tapes.
When they
yeah.
stopped talking to us.
That was cute.
Click.
And it was nice too. Again, they had so many characters. I was sad to see that some of the first class characters
got killed.
Either got killed
Yeah,
off,
they were all
off
experimented
screen.
on.
I mean, the only one you really see is Havoc, and only briefly in the barracks scene. Havoc. Havoc.
Alex Summers.
Alex Summers. He's Scott's older brother, and Toad. That's Toad with the goggles.
I wish they would have gotten what's his face to play
Ray
him.
Park.
Yeah, why not? Continuity.
Yeah. Well, look, they dropped Sabretooth. They dropped Tyler Mane and made friggin' Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Let's not even talk about that first Wolverine. And the first Wolverine is loaded with continuity.
It's the Alien 3 of the X-Men
timeline.
And Jennifer
problems.
Lawrence was fine. She didn't really have that much
she
to
was
do.
fine.
Yeah. But you could tell that because she's Jennifer Lawrence now that they sort of amped up her role, for this movie.
And they also it made sense to get her out of the blue once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
To let it be her.
Yeah.
And now
definitely.
it seems like she's a hero as opposed to a villain. And I think that is largely a function of her being Jennifer Lawrence.
Yes.
Which is fine.
But she's
and I don't know if they have her under contract for another one. I don't know.
That girl works too damn much.
But they've written
I
them
love
off
her.
like she's
I
off
do
doing
too.
her own thing, right? Like she's not with them in the
She's
school.
not with Eric. I think she's doing her own thing.
Their own thing.
She's not with Charles in the
that's what I
future
mean. Yeah, it's not
timeline.
there.
So
Okay, can we please talk about the end?
The stinger?
The stinger. The bonus scene. Like I mentioned before, I saw it and I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Am I watching like a clip of Stargate? What is this?
it was bizarre, and I didn't get it.
It was very inside baseball.
Okay, Mr. Inside Baseball, tell us what's happening.
Well,
there's a guy chanting.
They're chanting his name.
Oh,
by the
what
way.
are they saying?
It's his name in Egyptian.
Oh, okay. And he's building pyramids.
He built the pyramids.
He's putting them like
Apocalypse is the first mutant, and he was a character devised in the 80s as a villain for the group known as X Factor, which was the original X-Men regrouped, and they became their own team. And he became a huge villain, like well into the 90s. I wasn't a voracious X-Men reader, but I did know who he was. And when they announced the title of the next movie, I immediately made the connection when I saw the stinger that, okay, there he is. He's got the sort of skin tone of Apocalypse, but he's not this big, huge, muscular, sort of dark side looking guy that he becomes later on. And he's thousands of years old. Also, you see in the distance 4 guys on horses.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse. Now, over the centuries, I think he's had different people filling those roles. But in X Factor, one of the horsemen was actually Angel.
Oh, that's right.
Whose wings had been cut off, and he gave him these new, like, weaponized wings that were metallic and, like, sharp and whatever. So he's a major, major bad guy from that era that they're probably going to go into the 80s. They're going to go into that.
The question is,
with the
who will
first-class
Magneto
cast.
fight for? The X-Men or
the
baddie?
likelihood is, again, and I mentioned this at some point previously with Loki, he's a bad guy, but you can't always make him the villain. And you want him in the movies because he's such a great character. And he works as an ally and an antagonist.
But he's also, for 2 movies now, he's gone the villain route.
Yeah.
So...
Is he redeemable, though? I mean, at some point...
Well, in the comic he is, but it's almost like
Charles
you need something...
is always extending the olive branch to him.
Yes, and in the old timeline, the Ian McKellen, before they, reboot it...
He regrets his choices. He says he regrets the years they spent fighting each other.
Yeah.
Right. Which... will he ever come to that conclusion again?
It would almost work to the movie's betterment, the next movie's betterment, that they don't just make him the villain.
Right.
Because he's done that already twice.
Right.
So
I think that's probably the route. Make Apocalypse the really huge bad guy that everybody has to team up to fight.
Is there a release date for the next one?
I want to say 2016.
Is there a director?
2 years?
Well, it was going to be Bryan Singer, but it might not be Bryan Singer now. Yeah.
Actually, to me, whoever writes the movie, it's more important than who directs it.
I agree. I agree
with Tony.
Hey, all right. And on that note...
Well, this is all we have today for this particular subject. But keep in mind, we have one more Marvel film in the future, in the very near future, which is Guardians of the Galaxy, which from what we've seen so far, all the trailers, the new trailer, the old trailer, this is completely a different flavor. They had the trailer at the head of this film. I saw it in 3D. Did you guys see it in 3D?
I didn't, and I didn't see the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer.
Oh, really? Wow.
Not before X-Men.
They showed let's call it the newest trailer, because every now and then they pop out a new one. And we've talked about this before. Talk about a different take in terms of tone and flavor.
Well, this is going to have, I think, a little bit... This doesn't have the automatic audience that Spider-Man or X-Men or Cap had.
But
I don't know.
I think there people...
Loyalty.
Brand
loyalty.
The Marvel brand, maybe. But I think what people are hoping, first of all, and I think might happen, I can't say for sure.
The humorous aspect
well,
of it?
Well, I think that it might be like a sleeper, like Iron Man. Like not make Iron Man money, but just do really well without the sort of name recognition, because it looks like a fun movie, and it's Marvel, and it's going to have great special effects, and it's got a great cast.
I think it's trying to be, whether it's true or not, when we actually see the film, I think they're trying to market it almost as a comedy.
Slightly.
Like a light.
Not a
light. Like an almost comedy.
Almost comedy. And James Gunn, the director, is known for sort of offbeat things. He did a movie called Slither with Nathan Fillion,
I love that movie.
I loved, but was a bomb. Yeah. And he did another movie called Super with Rainn Wilson from The Office. Yeah, that was a weird one. Again,
and he is also the ex-husband of Jenna Fisher from The Office.
Oh.
You didn't know that?
No,
he was married to Pam in real life.
Okay.
Oh, that's
so
it gets weirder.
I mean, as a Marvel fan, I have high hopes for it. I'm going to see it opening day and all that other nonsense, but we'll see.
It looks like it has a good budget. I mean, the effects look like caliber, Marvel caliber effects.
Absolutely.
The only difference is that there is a layer of comedy going through this whole film, which we haven't really seen that much of it.
Well, there's been humor, mainly in the Iron Man films, but there's been.
I just want a good story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the only other thing we can mention about Marvel, as far as we know, is that the recent news that the director of Ant-Man has bailed.
Yeah, it was kind of sad to see that. Edgar Wright, who has been attached to this movie for like the last 4 years.
Yeah, they're saying even longer than the Iron Man films or something.
Has dropped out literally weeks from shooting. The movie's completely cast. It was going to be shot in Atlanta, and they had everything sort of locked and loaded, and the news just blew up that he's left the project.
Right. According to the story, they already have a director lined up, and I'm sure by the time this show airs, we will know who that person is.
We will know who that is, as long as it's not Brett Ratner.
Well, I would like to thank both Tony and Steve once again for helping us travel through this Marvel route that, oh my God, every year we get so many of these films.
And let's not ever exclude Tony again. Please, let's not make that mistake.
And don't make assumptions about what I like.
Oh,
yeah.
Assumptions will always be made.
Because you know what happens when you assume.
Makes an ass out of Tony. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you here next time on GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Humanity has been shaped by a number of pivotal moments throughout history, but the accepted version of these events leaves out a quiet battle that has raged for decades, a battle between individuals with extraordinary gifts and those who seek to eradicate them. 1973, an FBI investigation targets President Nixon and Trask Industries founder Bolivar Trask over secret funding for military projects. 1986, the Soviet Union's Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster leaves devastating damage and remarkable mutations. 1988, an act of protest in the face of communism propels a wave of change, but liberty was not awarded to all. 1994, in a time of revolution, Mexican freedom fighters enlist the support of unusual but powerful allies against a corrupt government. 2001, the prison complex in Cuba's Guantanamo Bay is expanded to house the most dangerous threat to our nation's security. How are these pivotal events in history connected? How does this past shape our future? Discover these truths at 25moments.com.
I think I would actually agree with Carlos for a change.
I would too. Faja.
That's right.
Faja. He is. I agree. I agree.
I agree with Tony.
I agree with Tony.